Hey guys, thanks for joining us for a very special E&M recording. We are getting to talk to Paul Cardall. You guys know him as somebody who has had billions of downloads with his music. Oh my goodness, we are in for such a treat as we talk to Paul about creativity and connection in marriage and all of the ways he and his wife Tina have truly helped one another to rise up into their giftings. And it is so cool to hear the ins, outs. Paul is a four, and he really also crafts us a story of the depths of, yes, it's really hard sometimes, but it's so worth it to see the ways he and Tina have shaped each other and the ways they continue to do so, just along with us. I am so grateful also that Paul takes us on a journey of what he feels like he's learned about being a leader. And just after Father's Day, we think of all the men, and he even shares his story of his newest music. And it's such a wonderful story for us to really pause and think about legacy as we walk through life with him, sometimes on the very verge of life, as he even shares about being born with half a heart and walking through a heart transplant. And his adventures are endless. So I hope you'll check out all of the show notes with his website and with his amazing cinematic music. Of course, you're hearing this from me, but you probably already know that. We are just so gifted to have Paul with us today. And with that said, let's go chat with him. Studio.
Yeah,
Paul, we are so grateful to have you on the Enneagram and Marriage podcast. Thank you so much.
I'm honored to be with you.
We are just thrilled. We are talking about adventures all month, and you have had so many just fascinating adventures. I have been having so much fun scoping out your page. It's in the show notes. But tell everybody about yourself and a little bit about your marriage and your amazing musical career.
Yeah, look, like everyone else, I came into this world with a gift. We don't always discover those gifts until later in our lives. And I'm a musician. I've been in the music business 30 years. I do very relaxing, calm
Mm,
instrumental music,
mhm.
and a lot of it is Christ centered. I started playing the piano 3 years after my third major open heart surgery because I was born with
Wow.
only half a heart. God gave me the gift of music as a way, personally, just for me to process
Yeah.
life's problems and challenges. And ever since
Mm.
then, I've been sharing. And
Mm,
my hope is to help people access kind of a feeling in their home or wherever they're listening that God
mhm.
loves them, that everything is going to work out.
And that's what I feel when I hear your songs. And you've so blessed my husband, who ironically is in the medical field and has worked alongside with heart patients and now does family practice, but just as a calming type one person. And I notice in your music, you love minimalism. And we just thank you so much. And I know every listener here can benefit from the piece you're offering. Thank you for also honoring Christ in that as well.
Oh, he's everything. He says to change your heart. And through the process of all those surgeries, I ended up with a heart transplant.
Yeah.
So I took that literally.
Yeah.
And then he changed my heart spiritually. And of
Mm,
course, he's the author of everything. So I can't
mhm.
really take credit.
Yes.
And of course, it's fans that propelled the career really by word of mouth. So I'm truly blessed.
Mm, I love that, and it's such humility and, beautiful, and we also know for our listeners that you've had literally, more downloads than almost anybody out there. You've had billions of downloads, so I love how you're sharing, like, fans make a difference, and that's your hope, is to make a difference in their lives and to give them music that brings that. You have a whole life with your wife, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how you 2 met, you and Tina, and a little bit about your Enneagram types too.
We met on a cruise ship.
Mm.
So we were both in separate groups going to the Holy Land.
Mhm.
What kind of turned into the Love Boat. And immediately I was drawn to her strength
Mhm.
and her ability to understand who she is and what God has for her. She grew up in Eastside Cleveland, the daughter of two immigrants from Slovenia.
Mm.
Melania Trump is also from Slovenia,
Yeah.
and in a village not too far from where all my Slovenian family is.
Oh.
And so she learned to work hard out of poverty, and she ended up in New York City with a finance degree working on Wall Street,
Mm.
and very successful, was also into the fitness world. She loves to take care of herself. You know, she
Mm.
knows that her body is a temple.
Yes.
You don't want to do anything but try to take care of that temple to bring God glory.
Yes.
And 9/11 happened.
Mm.
And with 9/11, um, it just was devastated for everybody that worked in the city. She ended up leaving the city, working in the health world, quit the whole
Mm.
financial aspect,
Wow.
and then moved to California where she worked for Rick Warren at Saddleback Church
Oh,
and
oh.
was part of helping develop the Daniel Plan. Now, of course, we met, and
Mhm.
I come from this artist world,
Yeah.
artist mind, right brained. Everything is beautiful and emotional, and I just want to share
Yeah.
love through music. And of course, she is very efficient,
Yeah.
does everything by the book. She's very faithful, very loyal. And
Mm.
so when we did the Enneagram tests, not only did it help us understand one another, I believe that it was vital to strengthening our
Mhm.
marriage. And I could have told you that she leans more towards a one
Mm.
and a five.
Interesting.
She's so resourceful, kind of like a straight A student,
Yeah.
less resourceful like a straight A student. But I'm I lean towards a four
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
three and an eight.
Mm.
So you have that weird balance. It's like oil and vinegar. They go great on a salad,
Yeah.
but you got to mix things up a little bit to keep things flowing. And I will say the one thing that we have done
Mhm.
that I believe has really benefited our marriage is we met on a cruise.
Yeah.
So we would plan a trip. We would
Oh,
plan
wow.
to get away somewhere. Doesn't necessarily mean exotic. It could be like,
Mhm.
let's go to a hotel for a weekend.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so we always had something to look forward to.
Oh, yes.
So if we're
Mm.
ever in like this valley of Nineveh that we both are walking
Mhm.
through together,
Yeah.
and we're somewhat angry with each other,
Yeah.
we still we've got that trip planned.
That's awesome.
And we don't want to not go on these trips. So, she's not gonna she's not gonna turn down Bahamas, and I'm not gonna turn down, I don't know, a historical trip to Washington, DC, which she drags along with me. So, you
Yeah.
have to create these future plans
Yeah.
that you both look forward to when you're both,
Mm.
aligned. And then, when problems come, it's like, oh, crap, we have that trip planned.
Yes.
And you work through it and you're going. So that's been one of the benefits to the
Mm.
differences that we may have,
Mm.
you know. So it's been
Wow.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, you're really speaking to research even in that way that says everyone needs something to look forward to, even if it's something small. But how much more in marriage, aside from all the differences and the shadows that we bring to each other, is it relevant to say, if we have those date nights, if we have these mini trips planned, we can have this fun together where we're not just in our daily kind of coupon conversations of, did you do this? Did you do that? Um, Passing the baton. So I love how you're saying like this has been part of the glue, but the other part has been some of the personality work you've done. And I do see some commonalities between, of course, the one and the four, and the four and the five. You and I both know there's a lot in our listeners of through lines there. Like when four is healthy, they also want that moderation. And I almost see some of your wife in your music now that you're telling me that about the minimalism. So I'm sure you've impacted each other over the years.
I think so. She's my biggest inspiration,
Mm.
particularly regarding how to be obedient in following through with what God wants for us. Obviously, she knows that no matter what she does, God's already taken care of it. But
Mhm.
because of what he's taken care of, she's most likely to, make a list
Mhm.
and do those things where I am more likely to emotionally express as a means of self-awareness and rededicating myself.
Mm.
When you talk a lot, it for fours, I think it helps us believe it
Mm.
and live it better. But we talk a lot,
Mhm.
at least this four does. And
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes to the one, it's like, get to the point.
Yes. I'm married to one also, so I'm like majorly yesing with you.
Yeah, you have to narrow things down. And so she's helped me learn how to communicate more effectively and articulate rather than going all over the place.
I love that. And I feel like that is a gift to you. And I like that you can encourage listeners with that because it is a hard pill to swallow sometimes to have spouses with differing gifts, which almost all of us do, at least in some small way. And most don't marry the same type from what we know about research. So it's really neat for us to hear you saying, I know, yes, I can be a world famous musician and yet still have things to learn. And we have helped each other to be who we are. So I love that you're letting people know you rise up more the more you let your close people influence you with their gifts.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, I have a question for you. Um,
Hmm.
there's this idea that when a couple is going to have a baby, they don't always want to know what the sex is. And then now that we have the knowledge, we get to know what the sex is. So in dating,
Hmm.
now that the Enneagram exists,
Yeah.
how often are we asking the person we're dating, give me your Enneagram,
Mm.
so I can consider this?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because when I started dating my wife, Tina,
Mm-hmm.
because she worked on Wall Street, the first thing she asked me was, what is your FICO score?
Mm.
Your
Wow.
FICO is your
Yeah.
credit. And if you have good credit,
Mm-hmm.
probably an honest person and
Mm.
pay your bills. So,
Wow.
yeah, the question to you is, how
Yeah.
often are people now using the Enneagram in dating? I'm curious about that.
Well, I think that it's increasing out there. A few years ago, the largest Enneagram or any kind of personality type indicator, Truity.com, they started actually a really cool test and they were on my podcast talking about it to say, we're really exploring who you might be the best fit with. Of course, when that test came out, as you can imagine, so many married people were up in arms. I'm with the wrong type. So we had to do a little bit of work there, but we're really learning together. Sometimes what we even score that we want isn't necessarily what God gives us or what we need. So I think that's sort of how we're piecing it together. Also, I recently read in a really good research based marriage book about how couples think that we're really good at assessing who we're going to find attractive. And we can do so somewhat on paper, but in real life, we're not very good at that. It's more of a chemistry. Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting. And I've thought about that question a lot because I have two daughters. And,
Mhm.
when they're
Oh,
dating, do we want to take the Enneagram
mhm.
test,
Yeah.
as a concerned father?
Yeah.
And, but then I guess it shows, do we trust God? By doing
Mhm.
that, are we putting the pen to our story?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we got to put the
Yeah.
pen down and let Him
Mhm.
take over the pen and trust that for Him to write the story of what
Mhm.
happens during those 365 days.
Oh,
It's really the hardest thing
mhm.
is letting go and letting God
Yeah.
take care of things.
Yes. And I think that so many are with us in that, like those of us who have children, especially I know us and our mutual friend, Jamie and Ruthie Slingerland, we're all like, some of our kids have just graduated and are nearing, or we're just seeing this is going to happen really fast. So I think that's been the ongoing message has been sometimes my type 4 daughter, who's a musician and a dancer, she says, calm yourself, mom. God has me, and I have already been listening to him, and you don't have to worry. I'm going to keep listening. So I think you're right. We have to raise them up and maybe let go a bit more, which is a process, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you plant a tree, some trees you have to, you have to stabilize. You have to put that rope and try to, because they're
Mm,
bending one way. It's
mm,
hard to do. It's hard work to go out and get an oak tree to bend
mm.
properly, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the analogy I tend to think of.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. Oh, yeah, that's true. We're all in that stage together. Um, well, what do you feel about telling couples how, when you're busy, when you're going for those ideals in marriage, sometimes, of course, we know we're in the pragmatic season, sort of lower down on that Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's just like diapering. But when we're able to reach for the stars together, clearly you and Tina have done so beautifully. What are some tips for our couples to be able to exercise their creativity, but also manage to do some of this together?
First of all, everyone knows that you fall in love with somebody and you marry them because you are madly in love with them. And
Mhm.
secondly, as you get into the marriage, you recognize the differences, the challenges, and you both come from these different backgrounds, particularly my wife, having grown up as the daughter of immigrant parents who struggled, who really carved out a path, a sacrifice so she could prosper in the American dream, where I
Mm,
was kind of handed that and had this perfect
mm,
family, and you don't
mhm.
necessarily, I mean, you appreciate it, but it's all you know.
Yeah.
And so the two merge, and it creates sometimes little conflicts and things like that. And then obviously trying to manage life, you need a
Mhm.
lot of communication.
Mm,
And
mhm.
men men don't listen. We just,
Mm,
we're fixers. We want to solve everything from our
mm,
knowledge of the past. And my wife just knows, what to do. She does come to me for a lot of advice.
mhm,
Um, but again, it's this roller coaster of ups and downs. But again, like I mentioned earlier, one of the greatest tools that we have is when we're on a trip, we plan for the next trip. We book,
mm,
concert tickets, or we go to the
mm.
comedy club together.
Yeah.
We've gone to the comedy club when, we're having a little tiff,
Yes.
but then we go to the
Yeah.
comedy club and we start laughing
Mm,
and we leave on a good note.
yeah.
Um, Going to church together, just you need to plan.
Yeah.
You need to date your spouse.
Mm,
Now, if your husband's not
yeah.
asking you out on a date,
Mhm,
ask him. I
mhm.
don't know, maybe when we first got married, we started doing these surprise dates. Like I
Mm,
would plan something, she didn't know what it was,
yeah.
and she would just be ready. And then she would plan something, I didn't know what it was. Sometimes because I'm a four, I give in and I tell her.
Yes.
I'm more disciplined in doing it. But
Love
and then
it.
also I think individuals need to get therapy.
Mhm,
Therapy is something God has given us. And being born with a complex heart defect, congenital heart disease, I
mhm,
didn't know that I needed therapy. But if God gives us doctors to
mhm,
help heal us physically, long after I got that heart transplant, I needed a doctor to help me process the trauma
mhm.
because we come into marriage with trauma.
Yeah.
A lot of that is personal and we can't really explain. We
Mm,
share it, we talk about it, but the other spouse tries to understand,
Mm,
but I don't think we ever really understand what they've been through. But because
mm,
we love them and we have compassion,
mhm,
vice versa. And so I think it's important for each couple to get therapy and then just to make sure that God is in the relationship, that both of you individually are seeking to be united with
mm,
with Jesus. Um, and I don't know, I really don't know how else couples survive without that. My parents are almost, they've been married almost, I think, 57 years,
That's awesome.
57 years, which is a phenomenon in our world today.
It is.
But they've kept their faith in God at the heart of it
Mm,
and the
mhm.
hope that all their children, they've got 8 children.
Oh,
My mom is a portal. So,
I love that. Strong woman.
yeah, very strong, but 8 children,
Wow.
and you want them to have the same.
Yeah.
That again, that's the struggle as well. And so you need each other
Mm,
in loving your children,
mm,
but doing it together. Like each of us have different opinions, so we get into
yes, of course.
things like that. But I'm grateful for my wife's one
Mm,
ability
yeah.
to help me as a four know how to emotionally withdraw a little bit so that I can have discipline
Mhm.
on what I need to do to be a better father.
Mm. That's really good that you know that you have this gift of emotion, but there are moments when, especially as a man, I think, but even definitely for any female for listening as well, that it's okay to set some boundaries and to say, let's take some time to regroup for time out so that our bodies can regulate again. And she's, of course, is a one able to do that as a very strong body type. And her five pieces are able to do that well. And so that's neat how you've been able to learn from her. And I would imagine also that as a one, sometimes you've given her permission to really go to her own, we'll say four arrow, or just that depth of emotion that many ones are like, no, I can vacillate between the doing and the the fun seven. But you're also able to say to her, like, you can sit deep with me sometimes. And I'm sure that's been a journey.
It really has. Ones like to kind of work things out on their own,
Yeah. Mhm,
and
mhm.
fours, I do have that 8 and that 3 in there, so that brings this level of, I don't know, a business approach,
Mhm, mhm.
to the way
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
things.
Mhm,
Like even in my music career, I think the
mhm,
only reason I really became successful, first, is people were listening to the music, but second,
mm,
I was invested in educating myself on how it worked.
mhm,
And with marriage, if you don't have it modeled for you from your parents, and a lot of people do not,
mm,
you need to educate yourself on how to make a marriage work. And that a lot of that is with attending church
mhm,
to get that doctrinal understanding of Christ's character, dive into
mhm.
the word,
Yeah.
pray a lot, you ask a lot of questions, and the answers come not in the prayer, but in the word when you're reading the word and the
Mhm,
word comes alive to
mhm.
you.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and of course, always like these Enneagram things, it's really helped me to go on YouTube and watch different videos on how the Enneagram works and how
Mm,
fours can improve.
yeah.
Takes a lot of discipline, but if you
Mm,
love your spouse, you're going to put in the work,
mm,
you know?
mhm. Yeah,
Plus,
'cause
God always knocks you off your horse, anyways, with something, and then he picks you up and sends you to Ananias, and it's usually my wife.
absolutely.
Blesses me and helps me see what I'd been doing and what I can do be doing better.
Oh, but as she has Christ also, she doesn't come in as the edges are softened by Christ, where she can say, I have a gift for rightness, and for doing. And it is a beautiful pairing in the way that fours are doing inhibited and ones are doing dominant. And so you come into that, like you said, she can pull you up and out. And then when you need to, you can pull her down into the depths. And so, um, but both of you, like you said, centering on Christ because he'll do it even when our spouses are, we're both in that journey of shadows and darkness. And so I do really appreciate you reminding our listeners of that. Honestly, they know I'm a Christian, but a lot of our listeners know I also get stuck in my head as a thinking type. And even my husband yesterday was reminding me of, doing my coaching. And he's like, make sure you're, helping this person to know Christ. And I think you're just really encouraging our listeners that you can't do it without God. Your parents couldn't do it without God. And when you think about what you said, like, I don't know how people do it. Well, I didn't even share the name of the book earlier that I was referring to because I didn't want to. Most of these more modern research books have a lot of beautiful attachment work, but they're also promoting polyamory and abuse in marriage as sort of the middle marriage titillations. So I'm grateful to you to say, like, no, come back to that rootedness of Christ and prayer. And like you said, therapy, like leaning into the work and the joys of vacations and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think one thing I learned the hard way is that with the trauma in my life, all of us self soothe.
Mhm.
We need to get back to that innocence of where we were babies and we were coddled, we're wrapped up in a blanket, we're close to our mother, skin to skin.
Yeah.
And that is what soothed the trauma of birth.
Mm,
And then we need things to help us soothe. And unfortunately, alcohol can temporarily do that,
yeah.
but it leads to problems. People are smoking marijuana as a way to
Mhm.
self soothe, but that
Yeah.
over time leads to it doubles the problems that you had before.
Mhm.
People turn to pornography, people turn to
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And, you know, the challenge is you need to develop a habit to help self soothe and
Mhm.
listening to music. I think this is why God gave me music after I went through such a
Mm.
traumatic period of where I almost died. And He gave me music. And as I would play, I'd feel like I'm almost in His presence.
Yeah.
And I knew I was loved. And
Wow.
then fellowship. Fellowship, as a Christian, we talk a lot about how we look to God and God looks to us and we become this beautiful little relationship. But the cross is not complete without
Mm.
that side to side. And
Mm.
that's the fellowship we have with each other. And it's hard, to
Mhm.
have friends
Yeah.
when you're in a marriage. And
Mhm.
sometimes in a marriage you feel lonely. Men need to be with other men.
Mm. Mhm.
They need to be with men that, I just came back from this leadership retreat in Montana, and a lot of the people are very well known worship leaders that your
Mm.
audience would know.
Yeah.
But these men are constantly giving and giving and giving,
Mhm.
and their wives are like, you need to go hang out with some guys
Oh,
and get your cup filled because you're constantly giving and you're tired
yeah.
and you're annoying to be around.
Yeah.
And even though you're on tour, whatever, go be with
Yeah.
these guys and get some
Yeah.
fire back into your life
Mm.
and come
Mhm.
home and love me.
Yeah. Oh,
And it's so encourage your husbands to find a group. And if they don't have a group of friends, and the type of friends I'm talking about are men
mhm.
who blow your mind in terms of I want to be like these guys,
Yeah.
be you, but they
Mhm.
have such class
Mhm.
that you're not the only one in the room that feels like you're the one, you know, leading this group. You need to be led.
Mm, mhm. Men need that so much.
Yeah, and women obviously need, and women are more likely to connect and have
Yeah,
friends, lifelong friends. Men are just
absolutely.
we get married and we just move on and we forget everybody. But I
Mhm.
encourage men listening to get plugged in somehow. Ask God to put people in your life. That's what happened to me. I moved to Nashville. I didn't know anybody.
Oh,
God put good people into my life, and over time, like the sunrise,
mm,
they started to come. And I think my wife will tell you, thank God.
yes.
So,
Isn't that true? She's like, "Learn from them," and, like, also ones are culturally compliant, so it means a lot, and there's a lot of 1s, 2s, 6s out there in the churches, and these are wonderful people generally, like, of course, we know we talk about church hurt and Matt Hammett, and,
oh,
we really like, we need to talk about that sometimes, but, like, we're all broken, but these people in, churches are often trying. They are hoping to become better and they're not perfect. So I love that you're reminding men you don't have to be with them 24/7, but weekly, monthly, even quarterly, getting away a little bit here and there. And I love that you just did that and you were so refreshed that you're like, yes, it works.
it really does. We have childhood friends, and then they go away, and you
Yeah.
know, but we do need it. So if women are listening, you don't need to find them a group.
Mm. Mhm.
You'll find them
Good
the
point.
group you want them to be in, but just ask
You
God.
know us too well.
Yeah, ask God to deliver them from Egypt, and then let those friends
Yeah.
work to get Egypt out of them.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that way, look, you don't need to do the
Mhm.
work. Ones think they need to do the work. You don't
Yeah.
need to do the work. Let
Yeah.
God do it,
Yeah.
and you'll be surprised when you
Mm.
ask and you put it out there. Who will come into your life?
Mm.
You need
Mm.
people. Ask God. Don't be a great. It's kind of like the people that are looking for marriage. When they're
Yes.
constantly looking,
Yeah.
nothing's happening. But then, kind of, it's this weird thing
Mhm.
when you're not looking.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you found
Isn't
this.
that true? Yep, that happened to me.
Oh, okay, it happened with you.
Yeah, mhm, same thing. I was not looking for my husband, and, of course, as a one, he was in that, "I know what I want. I'm going for this." I'm like, "I'm not looking for this." So I know exactly what you're talking about, but, of course, like you said, at other moments, of course, I was heart throbbing over somebody, so I think you're like, we have to let God do the work versus us pushing.
Yeah, and maybe I'm generalizing, but I don't think women wanted to be with the man they actually married. Men just have a way of, like we fix things. We just have a way of mutating into that man, and
Yeah.
then you find out we're not that man, and then you fix us. You don't fix us, so it's like, well, I'll accept you, and just pray to God that you become that man.
Right, and like you said, it literally happens, like, tonight, my husband is going out doing fitness with this guy, and he was like, "I'm going out with William to, Thursday night." I was like, or Wednesday night, I was like, "Oh, perfect, like, yes, do that." So, like, exactly, like, knowing, of course, we love our spouses and our men, but that there's always these people that we can be like, field them out to, to learn from, knowing that that guy's wife is doing the same, for her husband. It
Oh,
works
to-
out.
totally, totally.
But key point you made. Thank you so much, Paul. We cannot do the picking, the choosing, the appointment setting for these guy meetups. So that's where God has to come in.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But look, when you get that fellowship and you're around men like Jamie or Matt Hammett,
Mhm.
um, you want to be better husbands
Mm,
because you're communicating with them
mhm.
difficulties. You're not sharing going into
Yeah.
too personal things because those are sacred
Yes.
between you and your spouse, but you're at least encouraging each other because
Mhm.
our society needs good men.
Mm.
We're
Yes.
lacking and I say this carefully, we're lacking the testosterone.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
there's a recent study by the University of Chicago that is saying that those
Mm.
young men who are gaming constantly are
Mm.
self-isolating.
Mhm.
They add pornography to it.
Mm.
It even further depresses them. And according to this study,
Mhm.
testosterone is down 80%
Wow.
in young men to the point where those that are obsessively gaming
Mm.
are beginning to lactate and question
Oh.
their sexuality.
Oh.
And it's a battle right now
Mm.
for people to preserve and
Mm.
recognize that men
Mm.
are the bedrock of building everything.
Mm.
And
Mm. Mm.
thank God we have women who understand this,
Yes. Yes.
you
Oh
know?
my gosh. Yes. Men are needed and they're protectors. And, sometimes I wish that the biologists and the Christians could get together, and often they don't, but they're like, oh, yeah, like we study it all. And like there are differences in testosterone, even if you go out in the wild with chimpanzees, like very big differences between men and women that are part of creation. So I'm grateful for you just voicing that courageously to say, like, we need strong men and we need them to have group connections with each other because isolating or even like what we women want to do is of course have the slumber party every night with the husband and we have two daughters and a son but like just me and the daughters and the husband hang out and like oh why do you and my son want to do anything but that and it's very polarizing especially after covid so I'm grateful for you to say, like, get back out there. It's not healthy for your body or for you to be just with your little clan, even if it's comfortable and your wife is making you cookies. You need other guys to strengthen you. So that's a huge gift to our audience because, of course, I can't say that all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's so important. I put out a song the other day for my grandfather called The Shores of Normandy. In June, we talk about a lot of things
Mm,
in June. We celebrate a lot of things in June in this country, but
mhm,
people have forgotten what happened on the shores of Normandy 79
mhm,
years ago
mhm,
when the alliance of the nations joined together. And these men knew they were going into this battle because they believed in right and wrong.
mm,
They
mm,
America at that time was willing to fight and men stood up. Women were so important and involved in the war. And my grandmother was home. She had given birth. My grandfather was away,
mm,
and he is sent as a captain over artillery. And the hell they went through, I can't even imagine. So I composed this piece
mm,
about men going into that battle.
mhm.
And of course, my grandfather got wounded. He ended up in a French hospital and finally back home.
Wow.
And my grandparents were together for so long and they modeled
Mm,
for us marriage in such a beautiful way. My grandmother lived to be 100. The
mm,
posterity is
mm,
insane.
mm,
She would write birthday cards to every
mm,
grandchild and every great grandchild.
mm.
But I think, don't you agree that grandmothers, that's what they end up doing the rest of their
Yes,
lives?
I do. Yes.
They
So
write the birthday
beautiful.
cards, and it's
Yes.
like, even through the arthritis,
Yes.
they're putting a dollar in there, a $5 bill, whatever it is.
100. Yes, my
Yes,
mom used to do that. My mom has passed away, but even after her stroke, she would do that. I'd get a dollar, $5, bookmarks, scriptures. It's like this legacy that these women have of communication and nurturing, and I love that. But even knowing the story behind the song, I'm grateful that you shared that because this is more of a taste of what I got than what I got to read about it. So we're really excited for this gift you're sharing with others. And now I'll be listening for that emotion in it.
yeah, it's a cinematic piece, like a Saving Private Ryan. It just takes you on this journey of the darkness that exists in the world, but there are men and women who understand right and wrong and are willing to
Mhm.
risk their lives
Mm,
to attack and to destroy
mm,
enemy that believes certain groups should be, you know,
mm,
wiped
mm.
out. And
Yeah.
they did this together. And we really have forgotten.
Mm,
We've kind of gotten too spoiled. We're like
yeah.
maybe I'm getting too political, but we're like the fat, spoiled kid at the
Oh, I
birthday
get
party
that.
now in the world. And we need to
Yeah.
lose some weight
Mhm.
and recognize what has been given to us.
No, I do get that, and going through, geography this year with my kids was just mind-blowing in terms of just seeing how blessed we are, and so just you are kind of sharing the gravity of the why behind that because we have had the religious freedoms, we've had the ability to go help people, and even risk our own lives and to just kinda throw that away because it wasn't us, it was our predecessors is unwise, and so you bring us back to this history, and that's important. We were just at the Holocaust Museum, last week to end the year, and
Yep.
thank you for just pointing us back to what is most important, and that's a fear thing for a lot of us. You're a 4, so you help us to stay with that. So thank you so much, Paul, and where can we find all of your treasures? I know people already know you so well, but tell us where we can find, more about you and your adventures and your stories.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. You can ask Alexa or Siri to
Yes.
play "The Shores of Normandy" by Paul Cardall. Um, all my
Okay.
music is on every platform, or you can go to paulcardall.com and see all of the things I have there. Um,
Mm,
the other thing I do want to point out though is my wife.
yeah.
She is so inspiring and so amazing, and she has this Instagram story. She doesn't make any money. This is just a labor of love. She has an Instagram story. Tina
Mhm.
Cardall is her name, and maybe you can
Okay.
put the link.
Yes,
But in
definitely.
her story, she goes into grocery stores and
Mhm.
exposes foods by corporations that are telling you that they're healthy.
Oh, wow.
And she'll flip it around and reveal their true identity, but she'll give you the option that you can pick for your family, your
Oh,
children.
oh,
And it's really amazing to watch these stories. They only last
mm,
24 hours, but
okay. Wow.
she's helped me tremendously with my health. I
Oh,
thank God every day that He gave me something who's so aware, um,
mm.
so I can stay alive for my children.
Amen. Every day is such a gift for them. And you have already come through so many of your own heroic journeys, but just knowing, like you said, that you can be even braver, knowing you have somebody who's got your back and looking out for you. And anyone who has a 1 in their life needs to know that, or any body type, 1, 8, or 9, that it's coming from that space of like, I truly have a gift here. So let me help you to do better with your body. So you are so blessed, and so are we. And now I have new music tunes to finish listening to more and on repeat. So thank you so much, Paul. We're all so grateful
You're
for you and
welcome.
Tina.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate all you do
Oh,
to educate
thank you.
us and spread the word on how to improve our lives.
Thank you. Mm. Guys, that was such a treat to get to really delve deep. Isn't that fun when we get to talk to somebody in the 4 space who challenges us to look richly deep, but also has that sense of humor to say, come on, we know it's hard, but we know it's beautiful. So be challenged with me to find community. And we gave you lots of ideas. Just take one of them forward with us this week. You can always come back to this episode, but get it in your mind what that is. And of course, make sure you pair it with Paul's transformative music and the epic journey that is the shores of Normandy. Ah, love it. And I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.